You know those times that you're so far down the YouTube rabbit hole that you find yourself watching a speech on a topic that's never really been of interest to you before, but because the person doing the speech is so interested in it, their interest passes down to you, and now suddenly you find yourself gripped by what they're saying because they find it so interesting. Well, the start of this episode is probably going to be something along those lines, right? So, welcome back, friends and viewers. This is of course the Land of Fantasy series, and I am Jack the Panda, and today's TED Talk is going to be on Minecraft castles, Gothic architecture, and cool things that do in fantasy. Alright, let's go. So before we start building this castle that I have been hyping up for many episodes now, what we need is a plan of attack. And we're going to use this small bit of stone here, I've just decided, to make the plan of attack. So, let's write down some things that I want to add to this castle, and then we'll kind of knock them down as we do it. So I'll do it in rows, right? Row number 1. All arches, obviously, a very staple of Gothic design. And by extension, funky pillars. Can't forget a key part of castles in general, towers, and to make it Gothic, spiky towers. Nothing says rich and royal like big old windows, and we're going to be doing that, and they're probably going to be red, like those ones over there. And finally, on the layer of things that I haven't decided where are going, but are just general design things, bridges and walkway things. So obviously I love my bridges. If I can get bridges between towers, I'm going to love it. And of course, just general walkways along the walls. Very similar design to the bridges. Anyway, row number 2. I have this vision for one giant kind of rectangular room with big long pillars along the side of it, right? And the huge windows on the walls. And that is one of the rooms that is a must-have, so it's going on the room row. I also have a vision for one giant central tower to go kind of in the middle if possible, or maybe slightly to the left, considering we have a giant rock here. And that's going to have some fancy thing on top of it, which I've ripped straight from World of Warcraft. I also want a section of the castle, probably the bit that's going on this giant rock, if I can ever sort it out, to be what I've called the king section. So it's going to be much more royal, and that's where the cool balcony that I've already discussed is going to go, because I want a cool balcony to be able to view the whole land of fantasy upon. I have this great idea for one room and I think that would just be the coolest thing ever, so that's definitely going on there. And finally, I wanted to put an elevator in here that go up and down inside a tower, but it might be this impressive giant tower in the middle, most likely. And I wanted to have custom paintings that I've kind of done of the king himself around the outside, kind of like a cool display of his life so far, just hung up, and you can kind of witness it as you go up. He kind of gets older or something like that. I don't know, I've kind of got an idea like that. And we've got here the final row dedicated to the most, or arguably the most important part of this whole build, the block palette. And surprise, surprise, looking around, we're going to go for something kind of wild here, something a bit left field. Blackstone. Yeah. I bet you didn't see that coming, but wait, it gets crazier. Nether brick. Can't see any of that anywhere. Red nether brick, right? Because the whole idea is that we're getting closer to the corruption. I thought I could blend a bit of red nether brick in there, make it interesting. Basalt. I've always wanted to use basalt in one of these builds. I've never figured it out, so it's here. The red crimsony stem, for the same kind of reason that this is here, because it's kind of like the red version of this in my mind. I use a lot of this. I use a lot of this. This is red this is red this. Pretty simple. And also, because we've got a little bit of a vine theme going on, or like a... not really sure what to call it, but you see there's a little spoiler over there. I'm about to go give you a little... In fact, should we do that before we get talking about where I'm planning to put everything? Let's go do that. So the only thing I've managed to do this week, because it's been a busy week, is just get the design of this cliff face sorted. And as you can see, it's very similar to the other. Ow! These things always scare me. It's very similar to oh great, now I've lost my train of thought. Similar to the other cliffs we've got going around, but there are these, I'm gonna call them tendrils, I think that's the word we're looking for, of this cool shimmery crimson stem that I'm using. And it, as like I said in the last episode, it kind of becomes more intense the closer it gets to the castle. And of course, this is basically the start of the castle right here. And so now, all of a sudden, these crimson stems are emerging at the cliff face. You hop down here, you see you've kind of got them blocking your way a bit. Big old stems, a small one going along here, and all kind of trailing up. And then there's that special one that kind of hops over the back, if we can. You see, just to add that kind of bit of interest when you're up there on the, when you're up here, there you go. Just to add that kind of bit of interest that it's really reaching out. And it's like, oh, okay, well, this is actually a bit concerning now. And that very conveniently brings us back up here to where we need to start working. So, I've just quickly gathered up some resources. I practically destroyed an entire bastion here. I mean, look at that. As well as, a few other bits, stone, cobble that I just got from, demolishing an entire mountain. You do get quite a lot of the stuff when you do that. And I want to start marking out some towers, I think. Some towers, right? I mean, I already did a bit of it, but I didn't like what I was going at. See, I kind of had one here, but I don't think I like that anymore. What I want is, right, so the balcony. You see that bit there? I feel like it would be very, very easy to have the king's balcony on those, was that 7 blocks by the looks of it? Right, and that kind of looks out over this section here. Over on this side, we could have maybe a staircase, and then underneath the staircase there's some arches, and you can go through the arches and you walk underneath parts of the castle. And of course, there are these towers all over the place, because castles have towers everywhere. And then this kind of under passageway that you're walking underneath the castle can kind of end up coming out here. We can go to a castle gardens, and I wanted to do something along here as well. I thought it'd be really cool if I kind of made another balcony down here, because it kind of very naturally flows here. And I could have another balcony, maybe connect it to the trees slightly, and that could kind of look out over this lovely forest and be a bit more secluded of a balcony if the people of the castle just wanted a bit of a break for a bit. And then, okay, so I suppose, and then right, so the big hallway that I was talking about should probably be this area here, is the plan. So maybe from this block all the way along here, and then kind of along there, and you kind of walk under it, and the staircase will bring you up to the level, right? So the staircase brings you up above the pillars that you're walking underneath. If that makes any sense, in my mind, it works great. But the first thing we need is to very precariously put in our pillars. So if I put one there, I want to make sure that everything's built on a number I can work with, which is usually 3s and 5s. So let me do some measurements, and I'll see if I can make some decisions that I like. And also probably 2 towers either side of the balcony, just for showmanship. They're probably going to start like, here? And then, I mean, like along here, maybe? Here? I'll do some measurements and come back to you on this. Guys, I'm stumped. I can't make this design work. I'm struggling here. And I think I know what I have to do. I tried very hard to get this mountain to be part of the castle, but building asymmetrically hurts my head, especially when there's this huge area over here. I can't get the hall to work and not look weird in any way. And the towers are weirdly positioned if they're going to be here, because what I'm trying to say is I think I need to remove this. And now I know that only last episode there was a time lapse of me removing a cliff. So, I'm not going to do it in a time lapse. I might get behind on this episode because of this decision, but I would rather be uploading a few days late than commit to building the castle in a way that I'm not happy with it. And, well, this has turned out to be much harder of a project to get started, but the second you get, it's always the start that is the hardest part, right? Getting the initial towers, walls, and everything like that down is the bit that always takes the longest amount of time in terms of like progress you make in that time, right? So obviously, very little progress is made with a lot of time thinking about it. Then, obviously, most of your time is spent filling in those towers and walls and everything like that. But at least you can see progress then, right? This isn't the easiest thing to make a video on because I've basically been building up all sorts of crosses across this big platform here, all over there, and none of them made me happy. So, where's Beacon in a Barrel? Beacon in a Barrel. Let's make a quick jump cut into maybe 2 hours down the road. We'll get this clip out of the way, and we'll design something that we're happy with, and we'll definitely get something to do, some part of this castle built this episode, I promise. And snap to the future, the mountain is no more. And I've even got a design that I kind of like, but I'm going to improve it. It's going to be the same buildings, the same rooms, but I thought, first of all, because it fits the area better, we get this kind of big chunk over here that's empty, which, you know, it could be quite cool. Like I did say, I kind of wanted a garden at one point, but I found a way to keep the same pattern of rooms and make the castle bigger at the same time, as well as make it fit in a better space. And it involves diagonals. Now, I know diagonals are notoriously a pain to work with, right? Very, very much so. Very straight lines like this, easy peasy. You build up, no problemo. Nice wall. Diagonals are a bit harder, but I think for big projects like a castle, diagonals become less and less of an issue. I've always thought for small projects it's so hard to build a good looking house on diagonals. The bigger you get, the more you can get away with. And also, it's a bit of a challenge, and I thought it'd be a bit of fun, really. I don't really build on diagonals often. So, I'm going to quickly rotate this entire design diagonally, so it kind of pushes into that area there. And then I'll get back to you and I'll explain everything that I've done with each of the rooms. Alright, rotation time. And just like that, the whole thing has been rotated 45 degrees. I think that's how angles work. But we still have our main 6 towers, which is what the whole base is going to be built around. So, we have towers 1 and 2 on this front here. Then we have a small diagonal going wall. It's kind of strange because before I had it with the towers being squares and the walls being diagonal, and now the walls should have been, or should be straight, but I've had to add just a bit of detail, a bit of depth to each of the walls, just because it's completely straight line would look ridiculous, really. Here's Tower 3 and Tower 4, and then another small little rectangle wall segment to Towers 5 and 6. And then the giant tower is probably going to go here, in between Towers 5 and 6, maybe slightly in front of them, but not on this layer, because the whole design of this castle is we're going to go for layers, like a cake. Cakes have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. This castle is going to have layers. And this is only going to be layer 1, which you then build up so that you can have these walkways at the start of the second level, and then it kind of goes in, and you have different towers on the second layer. So while these towers might continue up, and actually these are the founding towers. These will continue all the way up, but then maybe some extra towers will join them. And one of those towers will probably be this nice big one here. But the first thing we have to do is build up this foundation layer, and I don't think I've got time to do all of that today, especially considering I'm not 100% on what palette I'm using. I'm thinking about, right, let me just hear me out on this one. I've been seeing a lot of builds recently with that kind of, where it fades, like a color shift effect, I think it's called, where you transition from one block to the other. And I'm pretty sure you can do a nice one with the black stones if you just, let's grab some of that, some of this, right? So we kind of build up like a bubbly sort of, nothing too special, let's just, that'll do, right? And then you have a bit like this, a bit like that, right? And then you can kind of transition it into the brick. Each layer will probably be bigger than the ones that I'm doing for this demo, obviously. It will take up quite a lot of the tower. But then this way I thought I could transition quite nicely into the blackstone brick. And, you know, it's alright. You kind of change it up so it fits nicer. I didn't have enough of the polished stuff, but that's an idea I'm having. Just so that way I could say that I'm jumping on the trend of doing block transition builds. I could even add some obsidian or something in the bottom there. That'd be quite cool. I think I even bought some up. This is such an awful idea to try and demo buildings with obsidian. I've already missed the block. Luckily, no, the right efficiency 5, haste 2 is pretty good. Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Anyway, not for today though. I think we've got the plan, which I'm going to call this the foundation so I can alliterate it out. But this means that we can, next episode, really get some proper work done on this castle. We'll get some real towers in place, I promise. But what I want to do now is just, before we really start on the castle, finish up the very back end of this build. As you can see, it kind of cuts off very suddenly. All these pathways just turn into grass, and it doesn't really end nicely. So what I want is to get some farmland out here, get a few houses maybe. I'm not sure how much I can do in one episode. It is quite a big area that I've de-treed, untreeified. But at least get a start on some pathways down the rolling hills, and maybe get a few fields with actual crops in. So let's get some pathways in place. Now, how beautiful is this? A proper area of farmland for all the crops that the land of fantasy could ever need, as well as some very, very noisy people living underneath the custom kind of hills that I built out, and I completely forgot to light the underside up of. And now I'm too scared to go down there because I'll be blown to smithereens, and I spent ages working on making sure that this hill flowed smoothly. That is the key step to making farms look good, in my opinion. When you get the hill looking nice and slowly transitioning down in smooth steps, then the farm just comes naturally. You wall it off like this. I've got this, it's kind of like I'm using the cobbled black stone to make a bit of a rickety old wall here with stairs, walls, full blocks and slabs. So it kind of feels a bit worn down, a bit dilapidated over time. And then I've got these trees right smack bang in the middle. I always think trees are the second most important thing. See, when it comes to making farmland, in my opinion, the actual farming part isn't that high on the list. But we did make sure to do that properly as well. Proper wheat fields, throw a few composters in there. Personally, I like this one. This is an idea I got from, I forgot the name of the person now. Oh, Whip, that's the guy. He does loads of amazing farmland if you haven't heard of him, and he gave me the idea of a field that's been harvested with the hay bales all kind of sideways. I mean, what a brilliant idea. It's exactly how you'd find them. And then we've got some pumpkins over here. This is one over here is for carrots. I haven't decided what I'm putting in the one at the bottom here yet. I also want one for melons, but I don't want the melons to go here. I think I might do some flowers or something. That could work. Anyway, and then we've got this lovely wide path with the overgrown plants. I really love this area. It definitely adds to the whole story because you really need some crops. And this is where the land of fantasy is getting them from. Of course, it doesn't actually connect up to the main pathway yet. It's not that far up. I haven't quite decided what I'm doing in this middle section yet. I wasn't sure if I wanted to jump straight in with the crops, so I thought, you know what, I'll give myself a bit of a merging point, and then I'll start the farms down here. And oh, I haven't showed you my favorite bit yet. Walking up this pathway here, looking up at the church, is my new favorite thing. Hang on, let's go right down to the bottom, experience the whole thing in one. Look at this. Oh, right on top of the hill. That church is amazing. I love that thing. And I love this pathway. I've just been flying around with my spectator account briefly, and I must say, I'm smiling ear to ear. It's only when you kind of take the whole project in at once that you really realize how much progress we're making on this thing. I mean, let's take I've got maximum render distance on, and I can only just get the whole build in my chunks without those boats going out, without that new farm we just built up leaving either. I mean, we're close. We're on the home stretch of finishing this build up. Obviously, the castle is a huge project. That's not going to be done anytime soon, I imagine. But then we get this castle up, we get the gardens done, we rebuild this kind of bit here. I always knew that I wanted this bit to kind of remain as it was, right? That's why I was avoiding on knocking it down to start with. But I don't know, I did it anyway, just to give me the room to build. And then, you know what, I'll build it back up anyway. I'm crazy enough, I'll do that. Right, so you get the castle done. Then one of the issues I'm having at the moment is I can't find a way to naturally end the Crimson Canyon. Because obviously this canyon runs forever, and I do not want to be doing Crimson all the way along here. Then, I mean, the farms very easily can be cut off with a bit of a forest I was planning on doing. You put some trees up here, you put some trees along here maybe, and it very easily cuts off once I'm happy with how many farms you've got. That's all very easy peasy. Something up here, and then we're done, right? Oh, and the giant ship. It might just be the last thing I do, honestly. The fact that I've started the castle before that shows how apprehensive I am about starting this giant build. So, with the promise of this thing starting to be built up next episode, I'm gonna leave you guys here. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone next week, and I hope you'll be joining me, because I've got big plans and I've got big foundations set in place. So, thank you all for watching. I'll see you next week. Goodbye.